As of Gen 6, there are a total of 18 different unique types in Pokemon. And with that, there are 171 unique combinations that are possible. So 153 dual typings and obviously the 18 single types. And after 9 generations of Pokemon, there are only 9 type combinations that have yet to be used. And that's kind of crazy thinking about how far the series has come. We initially started with only 15 types, then Steel and Dark was introduced in Gen 2, and more recently Fairy types introduced in Gen 6. And that got me thinking about what are the Pokemon that they could create. Like what Pokemon can Game Freak create that could fit these last 9 type combinations? And getting started with the first one here, Bug Normal. And at first I wasn't quite sure about what Pokemon could fit this typing, but the answer was actually right in front of my face. And I mean that literally, because there was a fly buzzing around my face. And I think a fly, especially like a common housefly Pokemon, would be perfect for this role. It's just a simple bug. It doesn't really do anything. I think it could be pretty funny design as well. And I don't even think it should evolve. It should just be like a basic fly. I can imagine that in one of the newer games, there might be kind of like a wasteland field, maybe like a dump area, and that's where these Pokemon just thrive, just like buzzing all over the trash and a lot of other gross things. But yeah, I think a basic fly Pokemon is definitely needed. I know we have Cutiefly that kind of fits the role, but it definitely feels more of like some sort of hummingbird bug hybrid. At least that's how I interpret it, but common housefly Pokemon. Make it happen, Game Freak. Next up, Bug Dragon. And I feel like this is a real big missed opportunity for Yanma and Yanmega. Those are dragonflies. Like those are basically bug dragons, and I feel like they needed to have that dragon typing. But Pokemon and Game Freak could redeem themselves here and create a new evolution for Yanmega and make it a bug dragon. I think that's the best bet unless they want to make another kind of approach at this. I also feel like Vibrava would be a decent choice. It kind of looks like a bug already. It has a ground typing instead of a bug, but maybe if there's an alternate evolution for Vibrava, instead of Flygon, it could be something else. Could be Bug Dragon. Or if Flygon gets a Mega Evolution, I think that could be a Bug Dragon too. A lot of options, and I think a lot of them would actually stick very well. Next up on the list is Fairy Fire, and this one was a little tough to figure out. I feel like the best option here would be something of like a wisp of sorts. It's kind of ghostly, but I can easily see it being like a fairy if done correctly. Obviously, the kind of spirit mist that comes off of those wisps could be interpreted as like fire of some sort, like a bluish, ghostly looking Pokemon. I think could work as a fairy type as well. And really curious to what Game Freak might eventually come up with this type combo. That's just something I was initially thinking about. Another fairy type combo would be Fairy Ground, and I'm actually surprised that this is the only other fairy type combo that's on this list. Fairy Ground types I think could be interesting. I envisioned it being something like a little gopher, something that's cute and cuddly. Maybe give it some sort of like a Teletubby vibe with an antenna of sorts, and it could stick out of the ground. Trainers would have to pluck it out to get it to come out. Maybe base it off of mandrakes. You know, that's a mythical creature based in like fantasy. I think it kind of has like a fairy kind of vibe. They obviously live in the ground, and I think they could go a lot in terms of that design where it has a lot of sound-based moves, since obviously mandrakes, if you pull them out and you hear their cries, you can essentially pass out or even die. So mandrakes. I think mandrakes would be a great option for a fairy ground type Pokemon. Next on the list would be a ground rock type, and I feel like this should be a fossil Pokemon. And I understand that all fossils are technically dead already, but why not make one that didn't quite get fully brought back? So a lot of the fossils that already exist in Pokemon, they're mostly rock types, if not all of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they are all rock types at least. But this one being a ghost type could be something that's so prehistoric, that dates way before most of the fossil Pokemon already that bringing it back to life still wasn't quite enough, and it's still kind of dead, kind of not. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not sure what animal it could actually represent, but I feel like there's an opportunity there somewhere. The next type combo here would be Ice Poison. And I initially was thinking that it can be some sort of toad that maybe came from like a very cold area, cold region like the tundra. Not sure if an animal like that exists or not, but I think it would be cool. Maybe a regional or convergent form of Seismitoad. If we can't come up with a brand new design, I think a regional or convergent form would be the best bet to kind of get that type coverage. This would be really cool since we have Salandit and Salazzle as fire poison types. So you obviously have two types that can inflict some sort of status, right? You can either burn them or you can poison them. And the same thing would be true here. You can either freeze them or poison them. So I think there'd be a lot of opportunity for this to be very offensive, very powerful Pokemon type. But yeah, I'm curious to see when it finally gets put into the game with what kind of Pokemon. Now these last three type combinations all have normal typings. The first one being Ice Normal. I honestly feel like it should have been Eskew, because looking at it, it's really just a penguin with an ice cube for a head. It kind of reminds me of like a normal type, and it is just a pure ice type, so I feel like adding that normal typing to it would have made sense. I don't think anyone would have really disagreed with that decision. But if they ever do some sort of Pokemon that's just kind of like, I don't know, like an ice cube tray. I know they're doing inanimate objects for certain Pokemon, so an ice cube tray, I can kind of see it being like a normal ice type. The next one is a normal rock type, and those I feel like could be some sort of fake rocks around people's yards. You know, a lot of people, when designing landscapes in their backyards and such, they sometimes put in fake rocks, fake plants. Maybe making a fake rock Pokemon would be something very interesting. It could almost be the inverse of Sudowoodo, where Sudowoodo is pretending to be a grass type, but instead it's actually a rock type. Here you would have a rock type that's not quite a rock type because it's also normal, but it's still rock. I don't know. That idea isn't fully fleshed out, but I think there's something there about possibly being like not fully a rock. Maybe some like fake rock, fake gem, maybe counterfeit diamond, something along the lines of that. I can almost imagine it being in the games where a trainer would be walking around an area and they're supposed to flip rocks in order to find, you know, some kind of treasure underneath. And when they would approach this Pokemon, seemingly it's just like a normal rock. Once they flip it, boom, it turns out to be a Pokemon and they get into a battle. And it would be similar to kind of how you would look for Pokeballs and sometimes accidentally encounter Voltorbs. So I think bringing that mechanic back in with a new Pokemon could be pretty interesting. And finally, the last type combination that has yet to appear in a Pokemon game is Normal Steel, which I think should be a hammer or a wrench of some sort. My thought is that it could be something like basic tools that's found in an everyday household. Normally I'd be against this, but we have a car engine for a Pokemon, for God's sakes. Clearly nothing is off the table. In fact, just make a whole toolbox at this point. Call it like Ratchet and Clank. Like straight up reference those characters and yeah, don't hold back, Pokemon. And I feel like those last three I mentioned, the Ice Normal, Rock Normal, and Steel Normal, I think those three haven't been implemented yet because there's a huge glaring weakness to fighting for all three of those. And chances are whatever Pokemon does get created that fits any of those typings will probably not get used since fighting Pokemon are very, very common. But those are the 9 type combinations that have yet to be created. I'm really curious to see how many of these will get incorporated into Generation 10. We're not that far off at this point. We're about a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years at this point for the next Pokemon games. But I'm sure at least one of these will be implemented because I think there's been a new type combination introduced in every single generation since the very beginning. But that's all I've got to say on the matter. Let me know what you guys think. Which of these type combinations is your favorite and which one are you most excited to see be implemented into a future game? Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.